Jordan worked with his dad on the team that was representing the president during the special counsel probe from Robert Mueller. And I want to play this from the CIA director, John Ratcliffe. He was on with Trey Gowdy over the weekend because it also is important why, while all of those deep state actors were helping Bob Mueller and everything was kind of at a stalemate at the FBI and the DOJ under the first administration. And then you had 4 years under President Biden's administration, where obviously they weren't going to be doing anything to help out or get to the truth of this. Why, even now, they didn't just walk in and release it on day one. Why even now they are still finding things and discovering burn bags that had the classified annex to the Durham report that was marked for destruction in a burn bag, but was hidden and able to be found by Director Patel. Let's listen to the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, Bite 7, about why they are even now still uncovering these items in these classified documents. Bite 7.
People need to understand that, there is no Russia collusion hoax file cabinet at the FBI or at the CIA. We have to look for these documents, sometimes that are well hidden. You have to go trace through emails and look for signs and clues that would point you to. That's how I found John Brennan's notes, and that's how we found additional documents. I've talked with FBI Director Patel. He and I will be declassifying additional documents that show just how sinister the FBI was in, amplifying Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier as real and credible to be included in the intelligence community assessment, but also in how they buried the counterintelligence referral memo that I mentioned before, how they went to great lengths to try and keep that out of the intelligence community assessment.
Jordan, when you look at what we knew from the public side and also from the work that you were doing side, that obviously there was no collusion between President Trump and Russia, that it felt manufactured, that the way that that James Comey, who was justifiably fired, especially now, and remember they were wanting to impeach him and they had triggered a special counsel all over just firing the FBI director, and now knowing everything he had done leading up to this, one of the most justifiable firings maybe in the history of government. But you start to look at this and realize how coordinated it was, how sinister these actions were, that there's that old adage, like whatever they accuse you of doing, that's what they're doing themselves. As they've repeated these cries of trying to destroy democracy, a threat to democracy, what is a bigger threat to our constitutional republic than the intelligence agencies, the office of the current president, the law enforcement agencies of this country, specifically targeting the incoming, duly elected next president because they're a different political party and wanting to make sure you ruin their presidency so they don't get anything done?
Yeah, it's huge. It is the biggest kind of scandal because you are directly impacting the way that the American people decided who they want their leader to be and how they want the direction of the country to be set by that leader, by the president. And then you come in as unelected bureaucrats and say, you know what, we're going to make it as difficult as possible for that person who was elected by the American people to do the job that the American people elected them to do, to carry out the policies, to enforce the issues and the people, the staffing, so that they can carry out the mission that they ran on, that the promises they made. We're going to make it as difficult as we can for them to do so by using the legal system and by using the criminal law enforcement system. And I think it's also that reminder that if it can happen to the President of the United States, it can obviously happen to anyone in the United States. So if his home can be raided, your home can be raided. Our home can be raided. That's just, it sets that fear standard even higher. Now, I'm proud of the American people for standing up and saying, you know what, strength in numbers. President Trump wanted to run again. Most people would not have survived this. Even if you didn't go to jail, even if you didn't, nothing, because none of this was real, you would have just walked away, right? You're a billionaire in your 70s. You would have said, you know what, I love my country. I tried to serve. The people put me in the place to do so, and the government made it impossible for me to fully carry out that my goals. We had a goofy election. And I think what Tulsi Gabbard said too in her latest report too, the fact is that what you find here is that the Russians had all this information about Hillary Clinton. And they also believed, it's clear in their intelligence, that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. They really thought that Donald Trump did not have a chance. And yet if they wanted Donald Trump to win and they were afraid of Hillary Clinton, why did none of the information about Hillary Clinton get out? None of it. None of that information. And instead, it was all about Hillary Clinton and her campaign and the law firms associated with it, putting out information about Donald Trump being associated with Russia that Russia knew the Clinton campaign was going to try to do.
Right.
But yet they supposedly had all this information on Hillary Clinton. They don't want her to win, supposedly, and yet they don't put this information out. Even though they're afraid of Donald Trump, they don't put information out that could have damaged even more so Hillary Clinton.
That's right. And I think we should take a phone call here because one of the issues that a lot of people are talking about are the statute of limitations. This is now goes back to 2015. 10 years ago is when a lot of this started. And then especially during 2016, you look at it. And a big question is statute of limitations for many of these crimes on their face, lying before Congress or things of that nature, 5-year statute of limitations. But what we're starting to see the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, explain as well, now, once again, it's in the hands of the Department of Justice, but that he's a former U.S. attorney himself, right. John Ratcliffe. He understands statute of limitations. He's had to bring charges and be aware of that, is that if this is a criminal conspiracy, that extends the statute of limitations, especially if those people are still furthering the conspiracy by lying to Congress, obstructing justice.
I'm going to point it right away. Is that because we're still talking about it and because they're still writing books about it, they're still doing, they work for media companies where they talk about this issue all the time. It's still a live issue. Right. And so it wasn't like they just all stopped talking about Russia once this was supposedly over. They've continued the narrative. It continues to this day. And so I think that's why the statute of limitations issue is different than in a normal kind of criminal case. Nothing about this is normal. Right. And you can't treat it that way.
Let's go ahead and take Stephen from Texas on line 1. Stephen, you're on Seculo.
Hey, Stephen.
Hey, I'm wondering, everyone's kind of talking about Obama and his presidential immunity, but it's quite possible that he could have still been involved post his presidential immunity because he's got the same cabinet that Biden has, and there's, allegations that he was probably the one running the Biden administration. So why don't they pressure all the others into seeing if Obama was involved?
Well, I do think
personally.
We have seen now reports about that, and I think that is a new wrinkle that, while we all believed it to be the case, it's now been confirmed, is that the initial intelligence report came back saying this is totally bogus, and this is after the election, so they know Donald Trump is coming in. Right. And President Obama ordered the intelligence community to go back and rewrite a Russia investigation, Russia interference narrative.
It was a completely different narrative than what the entire IC, the intelligence community, had been telling the government.
Russia wanted to, as they would in any of our elections, sow discontent. And they wouldn't really care about who it impacted. They didn't really care about Democrat or Republican. In this case, it was interesting. They were more worried about Hillary Clinton, supposedly, yet they didn't put out any of the information about Hillary Clinton. So maybe they were actually a little bit more scared about Donald Trump because he was not a known figure. They know, the Russians know how to deal with the Clintons. They know how to deal with lifelong politicians. What they didn't know what to deal with is Donald Trump because he had no real political record. So again, when you want the expertise on this, and when you realize how big these issues are for you, your kids, your grandkids, for the future of our country, it's much bigger than Donald Trump. It's bigger than President Obama. It's about, will our country survive as a nation built on the rule of law? And that's what we're all about at the American Center for Law and Justice.